Is it serious? Are we going to review Pentax K-3 Mark III? Yes, in 2025, the last available and still produced DSLR. I mean, okay, take it with a pinch of salt because I know there are Canon and Nikon DSLR still available, but from what I know, this is just selling of the stock and they won't be available soon. So probably this will be the last of Indians standing there, and like Pentax does have this idea behind it. They will be the only manufacturer of DSLR. So mirror is there. You got like two options. You got live view, and you can shoot through the mirror, through the prism, and both experiences are pretty cool actually, better than I expected. But let's break it down. So when it comes to build quality of this Pentax, I am positively surprised. There's a lot of, because it's been on the market for so long, there's a lot of reviews about it, but what I like is the amount of buttons, the how comfortable it is to hold it and how stable it is to hold it actually. So this is something I really like. What I do appreciate is this AF manual focus switch, and what I do appreciate is this nice switch between video, live view, and mirror mode. The viewfinder is really good. It does have nice quality. It will show you where the focus points are. It will show you all the basic information like overexposure, underexposure, and the magnification is really good. So I had to double check if this is really APS-C, and yes, it is a APS-C camera. So those are the things I like. The things I do not like though is that this this screen is not flippy out or not even like tilting. So it's just, if you want low angle, you gotta do something like that. You know what I mean, plumber's crack there. Let's not get into details. Anyways, like when it comes to details, there are two SD card slots, which is good. It says I'm a professional body, but you gotta be careful because only one is UHS 2, UHD, UHS 2, you know what I mean, right? So one is slower, one is faster. That's what I'm talking about. The thing that Pentax is famous for, and like since I first held my Pentax in hands back in the years, it was K3 Mark I, is how customizable it is. So there, if you're a Pentaxarian and you meet another Pentaxarian or Pentax lover, then you know that this Pentax will be different. So if you did customize some buttons here and there, those will be totally different experiences, and I love it. The menu is fresh and new, and you have a touch screen, so that is actually a good thing. So if you take a look here, you see the menu is updated, it's fully touch, so it doesn't look like old RPG game anymore. Now, let's talk about the most important thing to me, which is image quality, video quality, and later stay with me to the end because I'll have recommendations for who is this camera actually for in 2025. And some of the results are quite surprising even to me, so stay tuned. Now, let's talk about image quality. The image quality is pretty cool. So if you turn this camera to RAW, this is 25 megapixel RAW file, and the RAW files are pretty nice to work with. There's a good amount of dynamic range, which was a nice surprise to me. However, not many YouTubers, if any YouTubers, mentioned that this camera suffers from a similar thing that Canon suffers from, which is limited dynamic range when it comes to highlights. So it's better to underexpose photos that come out of this camera and then drag the shadows up because it performs good in low light. More on that later. And you will save your photos from being overexposed and some highlights like being impossible to recover. Now, so dynamic range, we got it covered. You can see on the samples here that it's pretty good. So now let's talk about low light and high ISO performance of this camera. And this is interesting because it is very good actually. And Pentax, as always, is trying to make step forward, and is offering to their users more than any other company. So you can go like up to, I don't know, 1 million of ISO, which is like completely ridiculous. But in any case, within like a reasonable range up to like, let's say 600, 6400 or 1200, this this camera performs pretty good, and I was actually very surprised, nicely surprised, that this camera is doing a good job here. However, you have to consider one thing, that if you shoot RAW and you want to turn off noise reduction, it unfortunately does bake it into your DNG file or your native RAW file. So that's something to keep in mind. However, this algorithm is actually very good. So if you're looking for something ready-made, nice, easy solution, that camera offers a good performance here. Now let's talk about AF. AF is like famous in this camera because, like, if you pair it with older lenses, it works like it works like a power tool, like you know, it's really old school, old-fashioned type of AF. But if you pair it with right lens, with high quality lenses, then this autofocus actually performs pretty well. And I was surprised that in live view it can actually detect face. Also, when it comes to like focusing on on not live view mode but this mirror mode, it shows you autofocus points. It works pretty decently actually, so there's not a lot of shots that I have missed, so quite okay. So if I would to compare it with something more modern, I would compare it with older generations of Fujifilm autofocus systems. So not yet there, but it's getting there. Shake reduction, so image stabilization. It has built-in image stabilization, which works fine for photography and not that fine for video. So I mean, it does work in video, which you can see for yourself, but it can be a little choppy, a little jumpy, a little jelly. So something to keep in mind if you want to shoot video. More about video later. However, in photography mode, when you have this shake reduction on, it does help a lot. Some shots I had, you know, I missed, like they were not sharp because I was used to image stabilization that I used in my 7A Mark IV. So, you know, there's a difference there, let's face it. But it's nice to have it. It's nice that even in low light situations, you can crank this ISO higher because it can take it. And then you have this nice balance between shake reduction and higher ISO, and you have sharp images in the end. Now let's talk about the video capabilities of this camera. So it can shoot 4K 30 frames per second, which is nothing spectacular, 8-bit internal recording, so that's what you have here. So it's not a video oriented camera, it's not a video beast, and you cannot expect that. There's a flat profile, nothing like S-Log or C-Log. It's just called flat, so it's the flattest you can get out of this camera. And 4K image quality is actually pretty decent. But if you're thinking of a video camera, video capable camera, think of something different. Just let's put it this way, okay? If you are into Pentax system and you want some decent 4K performance, that camera performs okay, but nothing spectacular. And you have to take into consideration that despite this camera being APS-C, so 1.5 crop, you have 1.4 crop on top if you shoot in 4K. So, you know, there's a lot of crop, okay? So if you have, like me here, Pentax 50mm 1.4, you will have almost 100mm if you want to shoot 4K. So something, again, keep it in mind. Now, there's a lot of special abilities in this camera, like customization is amazing. You can switch between native RAW file and DNG file. You can also develop DNG files in the camera, which is something I really appreciate. Panasonic had tried to implement that. I think OM Systems or Olympus back in the days tried to implement something like that, but the amount of customization you have inside of this camera and things you can do with RAW files and JPEG files is outstanding. So something other companies can actually learn from Pentax. So Pentax is offering a lot in this body, but looking at its price for nowadays standards, it's very hard to recommend as a good purchase, on being honest. But if you are already invested in Pentax system, if you have a lot of glass from with this mount, then this can be a nice upgrade. And even in 2025, this camera still holds up pretty well. So if you are tired with mirrorless cameras, or you just want to try something more of a classic photography experience, this camera is pretty cool. And their idea here is, Pentax idea here is to keep making DSLR cameras until they become like vinyl record, okay? Until it comes back. For now, my feeling is a little bit like buying a car from the 90s. It is not retro, it is not vintage yet, but it can give you some of the sentiments of your first car, your first, I don't know, Volkswagen or Audi car. You know, this is the feeling I'm getting here, but it's not vintage enough for me to justify the price and what it can do. However, that all takes me into one very important conclusion, because like as you could see for like last couple of minutes, I took a lot of beautiful pictures. I took this camera to Malta. It's a beautiful island in Mediterranean and on Mediterranean, you know, Mediterranean Sea, and the most important thing is to have to know your equipment, to know photography, to learn photography. This is the most important part here. So even this camera, despite being behind other manufacturers, is completely enough to produce great images, to be used as a professional camera, because you can take it to you know, professional session and take some good photos with it if you know what you're dealing with, if you know the optics, if you know how to handle cameras right. So that's a very important conclusion here, and I hope you guys liked it. If yes, please don't forget to leave thumbs up, subscribe, and I see you guys in the next recording on Jack Sputnik channel. See you. Bye bye. Kiss.